two for, this is Deanna's studio. Thank you for joining me at Deanna's studio. This is actually part two for the book club highlights, where we are focusing in on IBM and the Holocaust. The author is Edwin Black, and I would encourage everybody to, get this book and read it. And I'm going to be sharing some of just like the highlighted areas of information that I thought would be very valuable, or things that we could possibly relate to, that may be taking place now, or things that we've seen like during maybe the COVID pandemic. So, alrighty. And so what I'm going to do is I'm still I on a previous video that I shared, I had started the introduction, and actually this little part that I'm going to be reading, some of it is part of that introduction as well. And then I'm going to go into chapter one, just the very beginning of chapter one. What I'm going to be reading, the part that I'm going to be reading, it's on the introduction. It's page 11. Okay, and it says, "What made me demand answers to the unasked questions about IBM and the Holocaust? I confronted the reality of IBM's involvement one day in 1993 in Washington in the United States Holocaust Museum. There in the very first exhibit, an IBM Hollerith D11 card sorting machine riddled with circuits, slots, and wires was prominently displayed. Clearly affixed to the machine's front panel glistened an IBM nameplate. It has since been replaced with a smaller IBM machine because so many people congregated around it, creating a bottleneck. The exhibit explained little more than that IBM was responsible for organizing the census of 1933 that first identified the Jews. IBM had been tight-lipped about its involvement with Nazi Germany." Okay, so that right there, that is a point that I wanted to emphasize, is that although IBM was deeply involved in the success of the Holocaust, yet they have been very tight-lipped about it. They don't really want people to focus in on that and understand that they were a key component in the tremendous amount of Jews and people that had Jewish blood, or were of a Jewish bloodline, whether they were pure Jews or they were a mixture, half Polish, half Jewish. They had some type of a mixture of Jewish blood. And if IBM had not provided the equipment that they did, then the technology, the equipment that they did, then the Holocaust would have been nowhere. There would have been nowhere the amount of Jews that were exterminated, if IBM had not been involved. So, and what was said as well is that IBM was there very active, doing all the service on the equipment, and checking in all the time, and they were very much just hand in hand with the Nazi Party, helping them accomplish what they did. And one of the things that I that I wanted to point out regarding that is we can actually see some of that has transpired within, like in our world. How have we seen something like similar to that in our world? Things that we have dealt with within our society. And I would say yes. I would say yes, we have. And I put a little note here that I'll read. And I just said, we saw this same, it's kind of like I called it a tight-lipped response. A tight-lipped response. They didn't want, they probably still don't want the world to know that how involved they were with aiding and abetting, I'll call it aiding and abetting the Holocaust, the success of the Holocaust. We saw some of this, the tight-lipped response with the COVID pandemic, right? And there was a lot of information that was not disclosed, and I still don't know if everybody knows about some of this stuff. And it was all regarding the COVID injections. And some of that is that, the COVID injections has the mRNA in it. The mRNA is not a good thing at all for the human body. That is something that in some people that took the COVID injection, their bodies are permanently maimed. In others, it caused early death. And so that was not disclosed. They made it sound like, oh, you won't die from this if you take it. You'll survive. You need the shot. And if you don't take the shot, then if you don't take the COVID shot, then you're gonna die. All these people are gonna die. Oh, poor grandma. And they tried to make it sound like, oh, and we even had a doctor in the family that was putting so much pressure on my mother to go and, oh, I don't want you to, I love you, grandma, I don't want you to die, I'm sad, and this and that. And he's still injecting people, I think. But and there was a bit of some issues that we had, some friction in the family, because my mother and I, we were listening to the truth tellers, independent media sources, and we got some really good, accurate information, and we're so glad that we listened to them, because we did not take the COVID shot, and it causes turbo cancers, number one, and number two, this is probably one of the worst things that I think, one of the biggest indictments against our own government, and not just our government, the world around us, that they went and they injected all these people with these mRNA-filled injections, not disclosing to them that these mRNA-filled injections change your DNA. They change all these people. They have no idea that their DNA has been changed. If I'm assuming if they got enough in their system, they said it changes your DNA. That is one of the most sacred things a human being could have. It's like your ultimate identity. Way to identify you is through your DNA. It changed your DNA, and that was not mentioned. So they overstepped the boundaries of our privacy. That is a huge indictment against these pharmaceutical companies, number one, but also because our government was pushing these shots on everybody, on the public. That's a huge indictment against our government. I hate to say it, but our own government, but primarily the pharmaceutical companies. That's a huge indictment. They did not disclose that information, and that's a big deal. I don't hear anybody talking about that a whole lot. The one that Karen Kingston, she gave a lot of information. She also mentioned Karen Kingston. I wasn't going to share this, but I'm going to share it. Karen Kingston talked about how, I saw an article, interview that she had, and what she mentioned, which a lot of people, you don't hardly hear anybody saying it this clear, this very, very candidly, very clearly, what she said was that those COVID injections with the mRNA in them, they transition the human body into transhumanism. So that is another big indictment, because people were not told that before they gave them the shot. So they were very tight-lipped about that as well. That's what, as stated here in this book. Also, I wanted to share something on a personal note. It turns out that they are now filling many, I want to say all, but they're filling a lot of the flu shots and other injections with mRNA. So now you can't go get a flu shot without being injected by mRNA. Now, are they telling people that this is going to transition you into transhumanism? Probably not. Are they telling people, are they disclosing that this is going to change your DNA? Probably not. My poor aunt, I have an aunt that went and got a flu shot. She now has Guillain-Barré, And I don't know if she went and got the COVID injection. I'm assuming she probably, the chance that she probably did is probably there. But her doctor told my uncle and, their family, do not give her any more, and no more vaccines. Don't give her any more, because he recognized that happened to her because of the flu shot, and it has mRNA in it. I don't know that he told them it was because of the mRNA, but those flu shots have mRNA in them. See, tight-lipped about the dangers of mRNA. Okay, so that's, we can see this correlates with that situation correlates with what is read here in this book. Okay, so okay, let me see here. Where was I? Okay. And then it says, so although 15 million people, including most major Holocaust experts, have seen the display, and in spite of the best efforts of leading museum historians, little more was understood about this provocative display other than the brief curator's description at the exhibit and a few pages of supportive research. I still remember staring at the machine for an hour, and the moment when I turned to my mother and father, who accompanied me to the museum that day, and promised them I would discover more. And that's why he wrote this book, because he wanted to discover more. Because this author, his parents are Holocaust survivors, but he actually lost his grandparents in the Holocaust. They died. They were, they were exterminated in the Holocaust. His grandparents. Okay. And I did want to make a correction. On one of my previous videos, I mentioned that he was a Jew. Well, he's not a Jew, he's Polish. I just assumed he was a Jew, but he says it right here that he is actually Polish. Okay. So my mother escaped. Wait. Okay, he said that he promised them that he would discover more about all this whole situation. Okay, it says, my parents are Holocaust survivors. This is very personal to this author because he lost his grandparents in the Holocaust. They were exterminated, and then his parents survived. My parents are Holocaust survivors, uprooted from their homes in Poland. My mother escaped from a boxcar en route to Treblinka, was shot and then buried in a shallow mass grave. My father had already run away from the guarded line of Jews and discovered her leg protruding from the snow. By moonlight and by courage, these two escapees survived the cold, the hunger, and the Reich. Standing next to me 5 decades later, their image within the reflection of the exhibit glass. Shrapnel and bullet fragments permanently embedded in their bodies. My parents could only express confusion. But I had other questions. The Nazis had my parents' names. How? See, that's what got him thinking and wondering and endeavoring to do this type of research into this topic, is he wanted to know, how did they get their names? Because back in that day, they didn't have the technology, they didn't have computers and all that. He just wanted to know, how are they so successful in, getting all this information on all these people and being able to locate them. So, and that's why he wrote the book. It's IBM. IBM is how that happened. Okay, if it wasn't for IBM, it would have. They said, I think I read, I might be wrong about this, but I think I read that it would have been only like 3,000 Jews or something like that versus, I don't know how much, it was a big number, like 1 million. I don't know how many it was. It was a lot of people were exterminated. Okay, this is page 12. I'm going to read the entire page here. What was the connection of this gleaming black, beige, and silver machine, squatting silently in this dimly lit museum, to the millions of Jews and other Europeans who were murdered not just in a chaotic split second as a casualty of war, but in a grotesque and protracted 12-year campaign of highly organized humiliation, dehumanization, and then ultimately extermination. For years after that chance discovery, I was shadowed by the realization that IBM was somehow involved in the Holocaust in technologic ways that had not yet been pieced together. Dots were everywhere. The dots needed to be connected. Knowing that International Business Machines, IBM, has always billed itself as solutions company, I understood that IBM does not merely wait for governmental customers to call. IBM has amassed a fortune and reputation precisely because it generally anticipates governmental and corporate needs even before they develop, and then offers designs and delivers and customized solutions, even if it must execute these technologic solutions with its own staff and equipment. IBM has done so for countless government agencies, corporate giants, and industrial associations. For years, I promised myself that I would one day answer the question, how many solutions did IBM provide for Nazi Germany? I knew about the initial solution, the census. Just how far did the solutions go? In 1998, I began an obsessive quest for answers, proceeding about any foundational funds, organizational grants, or publisher dollars behind me. I began recruiting a team of researchers, interns, translators, and assistants, all on my own dime. So he basically got a team together, and he got people from different countries and where the Holocaust had taken place. He got all kinds of people doing research, and they were volunteers. He said, "Oh, all on my own dime." So I don't know if maybe he paid some, but he did mention that there was also a lot of volunteers. Okay, soon a network developed throughout the United States, as well as in Germany, in Israel, England, Holland, Poland, and France. This network continued to grow as time went on. Holocaust survivors, children of survivors, retirees, and students with no connection to the Holocaust, as well as professional researchers, distinguished archivists, and historians, and even former Nuremberg trial investigators, all began to search for documentation. Ultimately, more than 100 people participated, some for months at a time, some for just a few hours, searching obscure Polish documents for key phrases. Not knowing the story, they searched for keywords: census, statistics, lists, registrations, railroads, punch cards, and a roster of other topics. When they found them, the material was copied and sent. For many weeks, documents were flowing in at a rate of 100 per day. Wow, that's a lot. Most of my team as volunteers, there it is. Most of my team as volunteers. All of them were sworn to secrecy. Each was shocked and saddened by the implications of the project and intensely motivated. A few said they could not sleep well for days after learning of the connection. I was often sustained by their words of encouragement. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'm going to jump down to the bottom of the page. Okay, none of the 20,000 documents were flashcards. It was much more complex. Examined singly, none revealed their story. Indeed, most of them were profoundly misleading as standalone papers. They only assumed their true meaning when juxtaposed with numerous other related documents, often from totally unrelated sources. In other words, these documents were all puzzle pieces. So they had to piece all this stuff together themselves. The picture could not be constructed until all the fragments were put together. For example, one IBM report fleetingly referred to Mr. Hendricks as fetching an IBM machine from Dachau. Not until I juxtaposed the document with an obscure military statistic report discovered at the Public Records Office in London did I learn who Sergeant Hendricks really was. Complicating the task, many of the IBM papers and notes were unassigned and undated carbons, employing deliberate vagueness code words. So they had to really not just find the information, but they had to actually analyze it and piece it all together and, come up with their own consensus, it sounds like, based on, the facts that they had presented. Okay, catchphrases and transient corporate shorthand. I had to learn the contemporaneous lexicon of the company to decipher their content. I would study and stare at some individual documents for months until their meaning finally became clear through some other discovered document. So boy, they had quite a task at hand, didn't they?